Welcome to online lectures by CA Studies. For more lectures online, please do visit castudies.lk.
Hello my dear friends. So today I'm gonna here to talk about and to teach you all regarding the BL3, the law subjects that you all been waiting for. And this is the lesson 2 and the final lesson of the chapter 1. So the next chapter that I'm going to talk about the pretty much on the basis will be heavy on regarding that. So this is the lesson 2 and the final lesson you all been waiting for. Okay, so in this lesson we actually talk about the classifications of law. So what sort of laws, what types of laws that are established in Sri Lanka itself. So this is all general knowledge, so you can go through, study back and read it and get much more knowledge about that. But in this time regarding, I'll be skim through it and you will be able to learn the basic, get to learn the basic ideas of the law itself. Okay, let's talk about law. So in Sri Lanka or pretty much everywhere in the world, the law will be divided into public versus private. So what is public and private? Most people actually confuse themselves. What is private, what is public? Some people think that what is public to them may not private. It can be vice versa. But public law means that law that affects to the society as a whole. Public law such as administrative law, criminal law, and international law, also used known as constitutional law. Let me get that. We have admin law, constitutional law, international law, and criminal law. So these stuff comes under them. Okay, so what is administrative law? Administrative law, these are the gazettes that they have passed, laws, bylaws that they have passed for various departments and ministries. Can we call also Grama Sevaka areas, Palat Sabha areas, provincial council, sort of things like that, and mostly has to be, these laws has been made by the departments and the ministries are relevant to those areas, and we can have constitutions, we have acts. If you know that in previous lesson that I have discussed, acts, we have ordinances and bylaws, places like that. So we can actually challenge by the public if one of these, any acts and ordinances that are wrong or outdated for during the society as well. And let's come to international. International, we have maritime law, civil aviation law, and now these days a hot debate is space law. space law, aviation law, and maritime law. So these are the things that comes under international law. What sort of things that will affect into the society as a whole if one of these laws has been violated, especially maritime law. Recently, there was a Chinese ship carrying uranium chemical substances, and the Chinese vessel has not informed that to the Hambantota port that what are they carrying. So once they came in, there was a radiation detection and they were not allowed, and the port authority immediately told them that you immediately leave the premises right now because they are carrying uranium chemical substances that are this actually to make fuel for nuclear missiles. So that's why they have violated the maritime law of Sri Lanka. So that's why they were told immediately to leave the country itself. Also, aviation law. We have in our country, we have a area called the space. Aviation means like the normally that they if a plane comes from another country, we have like borders, so they should not actually cross this aviation line, so in order to get that they need to have permissions. In some other countries they have missiles that's so sophisticated that they can shoot down the plane itself if they are illegally entering into the territories. And space law is actually quite new because it's done by US and Russia. They have space stations, space cargoes and things like that. So normally those two countries are mainly involved in it because not many countries and such. And finally, the criminal law, well, as you all know, well, normally it comes murder, rape, things like that, and so on. Because the criminal law was added into the public law. When someone goes and murder or rape someone, a child or a woman, it doesn't that offense that doesn't goes as a person itself. That the person has committed that offense to the society as a whole. So that's why the criminal law comes under public law. So a person who murders someone, who rapes someone, it's actually more intent to do it again and again. So that's why they have this law in every country in the world that they say if you murder someone, it's not only against that person, it's that the society, you have committed a crime for the whole society itself. So this message, that theory was brought up to prevent further murders and rape that actually was meant to happen. So that's why. And when it comes to private law, so the private laws, what sort of things comes under private law? So many. We can name it. I'll name it. Which is family, divorce, collecting alimony, custody battles, things like that. Contract law, company law, etc. Because this law is against a person or a certain party. It's not a society as a whole. If it goes society as a whole, it comes under the constitution or admin. Or sometimes if it's a fraud matter, it comes under criminal. Since these are sort of a transaction between a person or a party or some sort of a group of itself, it comes under private law. And there's another one thing, that for public laws, sometimes if your public law has been violated under these four, sometimes you can get actually a free lawyer, from the Attorney General's department. Sometimes you can get a free lawyer too, because it has committed, as I said before, it has committed under the whole society as itself. So that's why in most occasions you will get a free lawyer. But in private laws, you have to afford your own cost that it's can. Okay, so let's move on. We have thing called civil versus criminal versus criminal. What is civil versus criminal? In civil cases, mostly comes under private laws, family contract, company, tort law, things like that. In criminal, you have murder, rape, fraud, etc., etc. You can name it. So most of the time for criminal, you're gonna have a lawyer from an AG, from a prosecutor, and for civil, we have to bear our own cost. So that's why most lawyers normally, when they are coming towards their milestone, so they will have to choose either civil or criminal. Most people prefer civil because it's easy, because there's a procedure and all, you just have to follow through it. But it's an arduous job, same as criminal, but it can be flexible. It depends what is your knowledge that you can, which called bending the law. Okay. And again, there's a thing called, in any law in the world, called rule of law. So if you Google it or look into a dictionary, the definition of a rule of law says that this law is supreme, that there is no arbitrary power to challenge it. In simple terms, no one is above the law. Even the president itself, they just have to abide by the law. So that's the basic definition that will be given you. Okay, no one is above the law is a basic definition. But if you look into the Google or in a dictionary, it says law is supreme, and no arbitrary power is there to challenge it. Okay, remind you. And we again go to the court system of this in Sri Lanka. So we have some type of different court systems, and we'll start pretty much from the downwards to upwards. Okay, so we have arbitration, we have ombudsman, and we got quasi or judicial tribunals. So before we're going into courts, people, they are resolving their disputes on these three occasions. In arbitration means that you mediate within the two parties, to come for a resolution. Sometimes there are lawyers, or there is a committee. It depends on the case matter. So they will talk and they will look into a solution rather than going into courts, which will be quite expensive and a lengthy period of time to get solved. That's the arbitration. It's much more cheaper and much more cost effective and time saving if you and the other party would be able to find a resolution. Ombudsman is some sort of a type of a complaint that you make against a government institution, and then one of an officer in a government will come and look into it. If there's a labor issue and some sort of a facilities issue, and there's a bit of a corruption that happens in the much more in a higher hierarchy. In those sort of things, or ombudsman it can be arranged before they go to courts. Because normally it will be issued for a government institution, and then there will be an officer who will be in charge of it to resolve this issue. But quasi judicial tribunals, also we call it samatha mandalaya, before they going to courts. So they will, the samatha mandalaya will talk into it. Sometimes you can come with a lawyer, sometimes you don't have to, but they will talk and they will go in a issue. If someone has a much more burden, especially if you eat in a restaurant and you didn't pay, they will call the police and they will issue it into the tribunal system, and they will tell you to pay. If you refuse to pay, they will put into the courts, and you will be prosecuted regarding that. So this is actually, these three institutions, or what I called options, are available to reduce the court's work. Otherwise it will be, we call it a floodgate. A floodgate means, what if a floodgate is open, the whole water will come and just destroy everything. There is no limit. So that's why these three options were available to limit the number of cases that are coming into to the courts. So in other words, to make judges' lives easy. That's why. So if there's no dispute, a resolution of the dispute, you'll go to district court, or known as DC, or magistrate court, MC. Okay. District court handles all the civil matters. Magistrate court handles mostly criminal matters, but there are in case some bit of a civil. You can go as a criminal matter, and in the meantime you can be in a civil as well to claim money. Because if you go as a criminal matter, the defendant will definitely go to jail and you will be gain nothing. Sometimes you can file under criminal and you can go, the procedures will be in civil. Vice versa. It's up to the person that they will choose. And So if they are not satisfied with the judgment of these kinds of courts, they will go to the High Court. It's the other much more higher court than this, and this court divided into two: Commercial High Court, CHC, and the Labour High Court. Normally nowadays they don't call it the Labour Court because it's normally sometimes feel like it's some sort of an offense for the High Court, but normally they have like some 3 courts that they look into the labor matters. If the tribunal or the labor tribunals, Kamkaru department, if they could not come into a solution, so High Court, they look mostly into criminal matters, and Commercial High Court will have money recovery, hire purchase, DHP, those things, and fraud. If someone has given checks that got bounced, because since they don't have enough money to pay up, comes under fraud, and fraud goes to either they go to jail, or it can be money recovery, that you own a huge debt for them, or DHP, a hire purchase has been made from the bank, to prove that you have taken this money. It comes under CHC normally. So please be in mind that this is the structure. So far it comes in the middle. So, and even you're still not happy with the judgment that is given from the High Court, then you go bit up, which is Court of Appeal. This also will divide. It comes here called Civil Appellate, which will handle the civil cases of the Court of Appeal. But the Court of Appeal itself handles the criminal and this public. They handle public law, other public law subjects as well. Especially the Ranjan Ramanayaka's case, that the Court of Appeal is the court that they have given a judgment to what you call to prohibit his MP seat. It has given that he has been guilty, that he has made unnecessary comments in the courts, that they have disregarded the courts, made an insult for the justice system. The judgment was issued by the Court of Appeal. So even he is not happy with the Court of Appeal decision, he can go up to Supreme Court. In Court of Appeal we say CA. Supreme Court we say SC. Okay. So the Supreme Court handles all the civil, criminal matters that everything comes under over here. If you're not happy with any of this judgment, this is the final place that you are going to rest your the decision with these judges, honorable Lord Justice's hands. Okay. And there's another thing called public litigation. That means you can actually, we say petitions that they have gathered so far in order to challenge a decision made by the parliament itself, because it's so unfair itself. And Supreme Court is the only place that you can talk about. We call it equity. We call it equity and trust. The law is there, but according to this person's well-being, this person's background, is this fair that this law will treat it that way? So there will be case laws to express the emotions itself by the help of equity and trust. This is an extremely difficult task to achieve, to convince the Lord Justices that even though the law is there, but is this fair enough for this person, because it's hurting him and his livelihood, his or her livelihood. So this is the structure of the court system in this country. And please be in mind that what I am teaching so far, it's mainly on point to the exams that is coming. You can study the study pack and gain extra knowledge as well. But I'll be only going through the what are the subjects, what are the lessons that are coming to the exams itself. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so bear with me for a few seconds. So we talk about regulatory institutions, that is Sri Lankans. So the examples of regulatory institutions is Colombo Stock Exchange, Board of Investments called BOI, Registrar of Companies, ROC, Central Bank, Credit Information, also known as CRIB, we say. No one likes their name goes to the CRIB. Also, Institute of Chartered Accountants. As Chartered Accountant students, you also have to follow a law. There is an act itself that how should a chartered accountant perform their duties and tasks in this country. So bear with me for a few moments that I will teach you. So the act number for chartered accountants is Chartered Accountants Act number 23 of 1959. Okay, let me write it. We have CA, Chartered Accountants Act 23 of 1959. Okay. So, in this act, so normally we have CA Sri Lanka, Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. So you have to register and your name is going to be there in the list itself and in the website, that as a chartered accountant that you have listed, and you will be obliged to perform under this act and the rules itself. Okay, So what is the role of the regulatory and the functions, so which is to maintain the standards of the accountants and the audit firms itself. It's to like a much more professional standards that each company has to be maintained. Otherwise they won't be paying their taxes, income taxes, revenues. They won't be able to show their their profits, their losses, things like that. So this structure has been built in order to monitor every company itself. So as chartered accountants, you have to maintain that policy itself. So otherwise, if there's a fraud case, the chartered accountants also itself will be present in front of the courts. So that's why mostly the regulatory has been built as to make Sri Lanka as a trade hub, not because that Sri Lanka needs to actually monitor the businesses. Of course that's there, but in order to build up the trade hub itself, because our country is heavily depending on trade and foreign tourism. That's the main things. So in future they are going to expand it. So that's why the regulatory has been organized, has been built, has been functions in order to prevent any fraud, any hidings of their personal assets itself. So normally I hope that you have gained so far, that you have learned something as well, but mostly so there are so many acts that are involved in the regulatory information center, which is mainly what I have told you: Companies Act, (2007), called Public Contract Act, (3) 1987. Yeah, these are the examples, few examples that I actually said. So another role that regulatory functions could say that to maintain the cash flow, the foreign exchange flow into the country, such as in safeguarding entry points that I have showed you in maritime aviation law. Because every time a ship or a plane comes and lands to an airport or port, they have to pay something called a parking, such as when we go somewhere and park the car, we pay a parking fee, just like that, because it's actually an investment and income to the country itself. So that's why they are heavily monitoring. So in order to safeguard the cash flow itself into this country. And yes, so I will wrap up this thing and I will go through in brief, in a shorter way, just to to refresh the mind. Okay, we have public versus private law. In public we have admin, constitution, international and criminal. In admin we have departments and ministries, Constitution, Acts, Ordinance, Bylaws, International Maritime Aviation and Space Law, Criminal Law, which comes under mostly under public, and it's the act that has committed against not the person itself and for the society as a whole. And the private laws, which is a personal transaction between you, a person or a group. So the examples are family, contract, and company. Okay, we have the rule of law, which is no one is above the law. That law is the higher, the most supreme authority itself. Okay, and the structure of the courts. So if you can't see the Supreme Court, I will write it down somewhere over here. We have Supreme Court. So we have in Supreme Court we call SC, and all the civil and criminal matters goes there. If you're not happy with the other court's decisions, and so we have civil, we have criminal, we also have public litigations. That means if someone or some group of people or society itself made a petition that is against that the law has been passed, because it's totally unfair. Also we have equity and trust. Even though the law is clear and cut and clear, but according to this person's well-being, the law itself is hurting. So they are actually gonna gain like some sort of a special privilege in order to free the burden. So quite an arduous thing, but if you achieved it, it's costly, but if you achieved it, you will get the best life that you will deserve. Okay, so this is pretty much the end of the lesson 2 of chapter 1, and I will see you in chapter 2 of a subject called BL3. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned with castudies.lk for more lectures online.